I started working with community gardens actually in, God, it would have been like in the late 70s.
Okay.
The first community garden that I ever worked in was in Newburgh, New York. It was in a public housing project. And in between the buildings, there was a big kind of football field size green area.
Yeah.
And we were able to get the permission actually from the local authorities to create a giant garden there, and we rented a rototiller.
Wow!
And it was amazing. It was really great. And then after that, we got some gardens going up in the South Bronx. At 139 St. Anne's Avenue was our base.
Right.
So we took 2 buildings there. We made a park called Children's Park, which Jonathan Kozol memorialized in his book Saving Grace. It's all about Children's Park, although he doesn't talk about the origins of the park.
Right.
Which was it was a squat. It was a vacant lot that was occupied by people in the neighborhood. This is like Young Lords, local community people. We took the lot. We're fortunate to get a grant from a local from a Madison Avenue Episcopal church for $72,000. And we no strings attached. Imagine $72,000 to a South Bronx community group.
Wow.
Wow. And we accounted for it to the penny.
Right.
Because our treasurer, Jorge Mendez from Spain, he's from the CNT, and he didn't let us even get beers after we were working. Right. He was like really, you know. But half of it went in materials and half of it went in labor. We employed 62 people.
Yeah.
In the spring and summer in the South Bronx. It was beautiful. It was an amazing experience, and we built this park.
Wow.
You know, play equipment, 40-foot shed, tables to play checkers, and brick pathways and planters, and I mean, it was just this amazing thing.
Why would we need an open space like a park in an urban place like South Bronx, Lower East Side? Why would you need to have it? You've got this wonderful garden right here, without Starbucks, without entrance fees. Why would we need to have spaces like this in a dense urban area? What do they do?
Well, I mean, I think the primary thing is that they enliven the spirit. I mean, you can't just, it's not, you know, it's not so much fun to just be around concrete constantly. It's nice to have some green. I mean, you don't know about it, you miss it, but when you have it, you realize how valuable it is. And also the more practical reasons of having open space to do things that community people like to do, you know, whether it's picnics or public plays or performances or political activist meeting spaces, and kids can come in and garden, and others can do, you know, that kind of stuff. I mean, this particular place we're in now, La Plaza, has a long history. Again, this was La Plaza was here way back at the point of the occupation of Charas back in the 70s. Went through some changes, and it's been used for, at one point in the 80s, on the weekends there were hundreds of peddlers in here. It was a flea market. So, you know, it was amazing. Up and down Avenue C, as far as 14th Street and down to 7th Street, both sides of the street, just hundreds of peddlers from all around the city came here. And then it was a feeding station. We built a shed over there, and there's a film called Stone Soup, which this guy made, and it shows a lot about a lot of the feeding that went on in here. And then we had the moment which a lot of this community has faced, where the development tries to come in, you know, the kind of greed mongers, and they, again, long story short, after a big struggle and so forth, they had the park surrounded by you know, police, and it was pretty much a lost cause. And they actually had the big choppers in here digging holes, you know, pounding stakes into the soil, right? And they went in, and when it was said, we lost La Plaza, you know, there would be a big giant condo here right now. But what happened is that they dug down deep, and they discovered that the ground was so porous that they couldn't sink the pilings that would be required to build what they had to, because of the weeping willows. You see? Beautiful. Yeah, there used to be a real big one here. It fell down. But the weeping willows signal, and there's a river that runs under here, runs to that side. There's a big park over there, and there's some other willows there. So the river runs underneath here, and it was because of the river they couldn't build.
Wow. I mean, wow.
Yeah. So the river had its moment.
What I love about these the community gardens also, I mean, I came into this seeing the bridge between sort of squatting and gardening with people like Michael Schenker. Who is somebody who was a wonderful, I knew him as a garden supporter. I didn't do the squatting with him, but I saw him with Esperanza and with the other community gardens doing this fantastic garden defense.
Well, Mike was always one to bridge the struggles, both in terms of the squat movement, which we identify as occupation of these vacant buildings.
Right.
But he was also very much involved in the urban garden movement here on the Lower East Side. And again, the great majority of these gardens, even though they might have been baptized after the fact by Green Thumb or one of the city groups, they were essentially squatted, which means it was unpermitted occupation.
Sure.
And so he was engaged in a lot of that kind of activity, and then subsequently in a lot of activities helping to defend the gardens against the demolition and real estate development that came after the period of the 70s and into the 80s.
Well, what about and then there's also what one witnesses within that is a changing of a policing of public space. I mean, with the band shell or whatever. I mean, these places people meet all of a sudden become contested spaces.
Yeah, the band shell was a very particular, very very much political demolition of sorts. Because the band shell, by its very nature, provided, and for people who are unfamiliar, I mean, this is basically a stage with a canopy right behind it, elevated about 4 feet off the ground, maybe, I don't know, 40 feet across.
Right. Big
stage, steps on the side, probably built in the, I don't know, maybe sometime in the 60s or something. Yeah, it was there in the 60s, I remember as a kid.
Yeah.
So it was whenever. But the thing is that it was 24/7. The park was 24/7, and generally the electric was on in the band shell. You could go in there and plug in any time. Yeah. So you could imagine bands all summer long. People were just plugging in there, and we would have large gatherings there, and it was very political. We'd have political gatherings. The squat scene, that was our living room.
Yeah,
that was our meeting space. Banners all throughout the band shell and so forth. So when they hit the band shell, it was very clear.
What do you mean when they hit the band shell? What does that mean?
They surrounded it with police, and they locked everybody out, and they came in with big bulldozers and they knocked it down. They destroyed it.
And so you've got a place that's a community space. The gardens are community space.
Yeah.
They start to go after the gardens.
Right.
The band shell is a community space.
Sure.
I met you during the crackdown on critical mass during the Republican convention, where you opened up, where St. Mark's Church was opened up as a space, as sort of a sanctuary for us to meet.
Well, the thing is, it's public space and open space. These are phrases that denote a certain physical entity. But really what they're spaces of freedom. They're spaces where people can think freely and converse and, God forbid, hatch plans for pushing forward a movement for freedom and liberation and justice and so forth. So these open spaces are seen as threats. Whether they're gardens, squat centers, social centers like Charas and others, they want to basically lock us out and keep us as atomized as possible, separated, so we can't come together and share our thoughts and our inspirations and plan to expand our movement. So I mean, it's clear the band shell was obvious in that sense. I mean, it wasn't like they were opposed to having even the bands and so forth. But when the space became utilized for direct political mobilizing and organizing and so forth, which it did by its very nature.
Squatting is the most direct form of direct action I can think of.
Right.
You're physically saying, I want to have a home.
Right.
It's a human rights argument, right? We all should have sorry.
Well, we always like to say that what squatting is it incarnates
the
otherwise abstract human right to a home.
Right.
The human right to a home remains an abstraction to the extent that it's not actualized through squatting.
Right.
So squatting puts flesh on the bones of the otherwise abstract right, the human right to a home.
One of the things I was so excited about last summer, I got an email saying there's this woman whose house is being foreclosed on, Miss Ward,
Right.
in Bed-Stuy, and I remember taking a bike ride over to this woman's house, and I saw yourself. I couldn't find the address, but as usual with a good demonstration, you can hear the noise of the community yelling.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
I saw the guys from the Doe Fund saying they're trying to kick this lady out of her house, but then I saw you and Seth the Boatman up there in the second floor.
Right.
And the whole community was surrounding this woman's house, so you seemed like you were sort of defending her house. This is the summer of 2011. In basically September, October, or August.
Yeah.
What were you guys doing? How are you defending her home?
Through the use of our bodies, basically.
Okay.
We are in a situation right now in this country where, because we've allowed the banks to steal people's homes, a lot of people are facing evictions from their homes, and the only way that we're going to be able to prevent people from being pushed out of their homes is to physically block the evictions.
Right.
And so what we need to encourage is that people come out to their neighbors' places and lock arms and fill the house up with people and stand down, face down, the marshals and the other people who are coming to try to throw them out, because it's immoral and unjust and illegitimate, the whole process, because the banks are ripping people off. They're stealing people's houses. Everybody knows this.
Or if you Miss Ward, you have a predatory loan, and so you're given a loan, then you can't meet the financial paperwork of the loan, so then they have an excuse to take the house.
In her case, she actually sought to cancel the loan.
Right.
She went to the company that allowed her this loan or whatever and canceled it. But they were not willing to abide by it. It's like trying to cancel a subscription to some bullshit magazine that you don't want. They keep sending it to you. So basically she was not able to undo that. And then subsequently they tried to steal her house, saying that in order for her to get her house back, she had to pay $350. She owed like about $14,000 on the house. She'd been in there 44 years in this house. So anyway, the whole thing is it's self-evidently obscene and criminal what's going on. But still in all, there's a lot of criminality that goes on. But unless people take action, put their bodies on the line, and in this case we're not asking people to risk their lives and so forth. They're probably not even to risk getting a trespass ticket. Right. But to come out and stand, because what happened in the case of Miss Ward is that the marshal just canceled. They didn't come. Even the local police who know Miss Ward said, we're not going to support this guy, so basically we just iced him, boom, and Miss Ward is still in there. So direct action helps. I'd always heard about foreclosing as being a scary thing, but I'd never seen an organizing campaign that created a story that you could about how to save somebody. Well, people need to. That's part of organizing, is to get people to occupy new space in their brain, right? So that they don't see that, oh well, I lost in court and that's the end of the road. Right. No, that's not the end of the road.